Our current ownership and myself started here about 2.5 seasons ago, and we're taking over what was probably described as a rough situation. The previous owner was ready to bail on the franchise completely, and so our ownership group came in and said, "Hey, let's give it a shot here." And so we've made some progress over the last couple of years, but not enough progress in the areas that we need to. So we're taking a step back and kind of reevaluating what our priorities are and how we're going to approach finding success moving forward.
Okay. What was the previous owner?
The previous owner was Deacon Sports and Entertainment. It was a group that was out of Canada, and they own 3 teams in our league in the ECHL. All 3 of which kind of had the same financial outcome for them.
And your group, which is called?
We're just Heartlanders Hockey LLC.
Okay. Bought the team 2 years ago.
2023, July of 2023.
Okay. Thanks for the background. When you say it was in dire situations, you're saying this organization, when you bought it in July 2023, was losing money?
When our ownership group bought it, I'm not privy to what those finances were. I think the assumption was that it wasn't performing financially the way that they wanted to, and so they were dumping the franchise to stop having to pay the cost. They didn't see a strong enough potential in the market, is what we anticipate that being, but I wasn't a part of any of those conversations to confirm that.
Okay. So you're the president of the team, but you weren't involved in buying the team. You were appointed president to
Correct.
lead this group, to lead this organization.
Yep, I'm just an employee of the company like everybody else.
Okay, cool. Over the last 2 years, did you think you were making progress financially? What did it look like?
Yeah, which I think our ownership group, what this is about is more than just financially. There are some strategic partnerships that happen in other markets that we just haven't been able to establish those here yet, and those are going to be important for what we do moving forward. And so over the last 2 years, we have made quite a bit of progress. We've had the 6 of the top 10 attendances in team history. We've had the only 2 sellouts in team history. Our revenue is increasing. But what the goals are for long-term success and financial stability of the organization, there are some other things that we need to work on.
So is the organization since you've taken over, has it made money?
The finances that we have internally are something that our owner wants us to keep private. So I appreciate the question, but I'm not able to answer what that looks like.
So you're not able to say whether or not this organization has made money?
That's not something that I'm authorized to share at this point.
Okay. Let me put it another way. The reason for the shutdown, or I shouldn't say shutdown, the suspension of next season, is it solely or at least primary because of a financial issue?
I don't know if it's an issue. I think there are some goals and priorities that our owner has. And while we've made progress towards those, the leaps that we were making were not quite as big as they needed to be. And so what we're doing is we're taking a pause on what is a big part of our expenses, is the actual operating the team. That we're still a member of the league, we still pay dues, there's still financial concerns that we have. But building the right systems and getting the right partnerships in place for us to be able to make those big jumps. And kind of an example I would use is I've heard the phrase, you're trying to build a plane while you fly it, and sometimes it's better to just come back to the ground and build what you need to do and then take off again. And that's really kind of what we're working on right now.
Okay. What were some of the biggest problems you guys saw over the last 2 years? And I understand if you can't give actual numbers financially, but biggest problems that you are hoping to fix in the next calendar year?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest one is what's our attendance. And there's, when we talk about attendance, there's people think who's bought tickets. And so there's a component where people are buying tickets and not showing up. And that's an area that's worth addressing. Why are people buying things and not attending? Another thing is there's large demographic groups that we just haven't really made the inroads to be able to pull those in, which is going to be a large part of creating the experience that we want for the fans that are here. It obviously feels very different when the arena is full versus when it's a quarter full. So how can we make it so that more of our games are the exact experience that we want to offer for our fans, for our players, for our coaches, for our sponsors and partners in the community? We want to make sure that we're delivering on the goals and objectives that we have for those groups.
Have you been, and I apologize if this word sounds a certain way, I can't think of a better word than unsatisfied. Have you been unsatisfied with your team's relationship with the fan base in Eastern Iowa?
I don't think unsatisfied is the right word. We've got some just unbelievable fans. We've got, whether that's businesses and organizations, whether it's nonprofits that come out, it's individual season ticket holders, or people that are flex ticket buyers that come 3, 5, 6 times a year out of our 36 game schedule. If there was a dissatisfying position on this, it's that we haven't done the right work to be able to connect with the groups that we think would really enjoy being at our games. And that's one of the areas that we want to work on over the next year, is how are we making sure we're going to get in front of the right people to be able to introduce them to the game of hockey.
Okay. Would it be fair to say the primary reasons for the primary issues you want to address are revenue and ticket sales?
Certainly ticket sales is something that we want. Revenue comes along with that, and ultimately we want to be I want to say top tier. That's a hard thing to reach, but when people think about what do I want to do this weekend, we want Heartlanders to be much higher on the chain than it is right now. And so for us to be able to get that, and there's lots of other things that come along with that. Revenue is one that does. But there's also being able to contribute back to our community, and that's been a primary goal of ours as well.
Then it just seems to not square the circle. I can't square it. Why is taking a year off, or how is taking a year off going to help you connect more with fans and sponsorships?
Yeah, well, I think it's the being able to set in place the right strategies and structures to be able to do that. And what we're doing right now, it takes a lot of work to operate a team in the East Coast Hockey League. We have, unlike some of the other leagues that are around, we have in some cases 3, 4, 5 different player transactions a week. So when you're dealing with coming and going of players, which doesn't necessarily occur that often in some of the other sports or in some of the other leagues, that can derail us from spending the time on these are the things that we need to be working on systemically, because we're trying to work on the day-to-day stuff. And so being able to take a step back and say the day-to-day isn't going to be a part of what we're working on. We're just working on the structural things that are going to set us up for success in the future.
Is there any specific plan, bullet point you guys are already putting into place? Things like, we're excited to do this next year.
Yeah.
Next calendar year.
Well, as we approach this voluntary suspension, there's not necessarily things that we've decided on right now. There are some partnerships that we need to continue to improve upon, and we're going to evaluate those. But to be able to say these are the 3 things that are going to make all the difference, we're not quite at that point yet. But we're in a position where we're going to start exploring, once this season is done, what are the things that worked well, what are the things that didn't work well, where are areas that we saw some growth but not the growth that we needed, development of partnerships that we didn't necessarily have. And so right now there's not a bullet pointed list that we can give, but everything is on the table for a reevaluation.
All right. So we move into what happens now. First off, what was the decision to voluntarily suspend next season? Who makes that decision? How did you come to that decision? And when you contacted the ECHL, what did they say? Were they hesitant at first?
That's a great question. So the process is, as an owner, our ownership group put in a petition to the ECHL Board of Governors that said, hey, we're not where we want to be. For us to be able to continue in this league, we need to make some changes. And we would like to exercise the right in the bylaws to have a 1-year voluntary suspension of operations. And That request or petition then goes in front of the Board of Governors, which is made up of all the presidents and owners from every team in the ECHL. And so in late January, that got brought up in our Board of Governors meeting, and it ultimately got voted on and approved. That the other owners in the league said, we believe this is the best course of action moving forward to keep the Iowa Heartlanders a viable part of our league. And so that was getting approval for that. And then our owner has been working over the last couple months to try and find additional investors and additional partners that would help us achieve some of the goals that we have. So we had until early March to be able to make that decision whether we were going to exercise that option or not. And then our owner ultimately decided we weren't at a place yet to be able to say, let's continue operating next year. Let's go ahead and accept this. The approval that we had gotten, let's go ahead and accept that.
Was there a chance, I truly don't know this, was there a chance the ECHL Board of Governors saw that request and said, these guys don't want to be in the league, let's kick them out?
Yeah, that's every single owner has the opportunity to vote and say, no, I don't believe this is a viable option, that we should not allow the Heartlanders to do this. And overwhelmingly, the group voted that this was in the best interest of the Heartlanders, as well as the ECHL.
Why, forgive me because you can't speak for other people, but in your best opinion as a president, why are the Heartlanders viable for the ECHL despite the fact that they need a year off? They have to land the plane, so to speak. Why do people, do your corresponding presidents in the league want to keep you guys around despite the fact you're going to take a year off?
Yeah, I think that well, there's a lot of things that can be beneficial. So one of them is our geographic location. That the way the league is built out, you could go from Bloomington, Illinois to Kansas City, and then you get over into sort of the breadbasket start parts of America. So it's a good place for people to come and play. It creates opportunities inside a state that they don't already have a team, and in a geographic market that largely doesn't have many teams in this league. Additionally, I think our owner has a great history of being an owner with his other team in the USHL. And ultimately, some of the things that we've been able to do over the last 2.5 years proves that there is a market for ECHL hockey in this area. It's just a matter of us reaching that potential.
Can you say with 100% certainty that the Iowa Heartlanders will have a season in 2027, 2028?
So I can't say that with 100% certainty. I can tell you that with 100% certainty, the effort will be made to make sure that we're doing everything possible to have a season in 27, 28 here in Coralville. That's absolutely I shouldn't say imperative. It's incredibly important to our owner that we continue to have this team in Coralville. And so we're basically spending this next year trying to figure out, can we line up all the things that we need to make sure that we can be successful and stay here for a long-term future.
I hate to put the doomsday scenario on you, but assuming you guys, everyone in this building, everyone in the various buildings across this ECHL, they want to see the Heartlanders in 2027, 2028. What's the scenario in which you guys have to fold at the end of next year? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah.
Or why would that have to happen? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be something that would be a ownership level decision, that the work that we'll do in conjunction with the league and some of the other national partners that we have, our local community partners and leaders, and then the staff that will be here working on that. If it feels like we've made sufficient progress to be able to take off, we're going to move forward with that. And if for some reason the ownership group doesn't feel like we've set ourselves up for success moving forward, then there are a couple options that ownership has. There is the possibility of selling the team. There's the possibility of simply folding. But right now, the only one we're focused on is let's get to where we're fielding a team again, icing and skating come October 2027.
What happens to the people who work in this building, the skaters,
Yeah.
the players, the coaches? What happens to the staff? What happens to all of them?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and a part of that I'm going to be able to answer, and part of it I just don't know what the answer is. But from a player perspective, every player in the ECHL is on a 1-year deal, so essentially they become unrestricted free agents, and our hope is that most of them will continue their career somewhere next year, and if the situation aligns so that we can field the team again in 27-28. Hopefully they've enjoyed their experience enough to come back here at that point. And I think that's the same way for our coaching staff and our support staff in hockey ops, our athletic trainer, our equipment manager, our strength and conditioning partners, that they find other opportunities to continue their careers, and then hopefully we'll be interested in coming back if that opportunity exists.
Okay. And how about staff, front office staff, you, David? Where do these people have to go next year?
Yeah, well, I think right now what we're working on is let's get through the end of the season, and we want to make sure that we're fulfilling all the obligations we have to our partners and our season ticket holders, and we want to finish the year on a note that everybody associated with this organization and this community can be proud of. And once we get to that point, and leading up to that, part of my work with our ownership group is let's have a conversation about the things that we're going to need to work on, and then what are the staff and staff involvement that we need to make that happen. And once we get to that point, we'll be able to say these are the staff that we need to have in place, and there will be some staff that unfortunately we probably won't have a role for in the off season and during next year, but certainly the goal is to make sure that we have the staff in place to be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish over the next year.
Okay. Do you have a guess, an estimate of perhaps how many staff you'll take going into next season versus how many staff you're going to have to let go?
I don't know that I necessarily have a good guess. I think the goal here is to try and have as many people here as possible,
okay.
But there's got to be a reasonable role for them to have over the next year, which some of the staff that are more game day focused are probably not going to have a spot here when we don't have any games to play. But the other staff who do have opportunities to still contribute and help us move forward, the goal is hopefully to have those staff here as well.
I'm just curious, do you have a relationship with the city of Coralville at all? Were they involved in any of this?
So the city of Coralville is a partner with us in terms of they've got a vested interest in this area succeeding. And the Iowa Heartlanders and a hockey team, which are part of the programming at Extreme Arena, are something that they want to see succeed. And so we work with the city of Coralville on a variety of things throughout the year. They don't individually fund us. They don't provide us with any taxpayer dollars, but they are a part of the conversation that we have about how do we improve what the outcomes are for the Iowa Heartlanders and how effectively it is that we can meet the objectives we have internally.
I'm going back to something similar I asked earlier, which is just the decision you guys ultimately came to of suspending next season. Was there the possibility that you wouldn't suspend next season? I guess, can you take me more into that room where you had to make that decision, where you had to say, we have to land the plane, so to speak?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the room where that decision was made. My role in the organization is day-to-day operations, and so I provide input, I provide numbers, I provide updates on the conversations we're having, the progress we're making in certain areas. So as much as I would love to tell you, like this was the factor, or this was, I hate to say the straw that broke the camel's back, but for lack of a better term, like whatever the decision point was for our ownership group, I wasn't in the room when that happened, and essentially I got shared the news that, hey, this could be happening.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the things that we need to do to get to that point, and are there things we can do to avoid having to make that decision. But then when the decision was ultimately made, it was just relayed to me for execution of what we need to do to make sure that we're sharing this information and preparing ourselves to finish the season strong and start working on the things we need to work on during the suspension.
Who shared that information with you? How did you react?
For me, it was a frustrating and saddening situation. I mean, I think like all the employees here at the Iowa Heartlanders, I feel like I've put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of my passion and heart into what we're doing, and to hear that the efforts that we were making weren't quite enough for us to be able to continue was frustrating. But ultimately, when somebody owns a team, they have goals that they want to set, and if we're not achieving those, that's just part of how the world works.
This suspension has nothing to do with the ECHL players' strike from earlier this season, correct?
It's not in response to that,
Okay.
but I think there are certain economic factors that are economic impacts from the change in the collective bargaining agreement that are moving forward. That as additional expenses get brought on, those are things that we have to evaluate. How are we going to manage those things? And that, like all businesses, things shift in the economic climate, and you've got to be able to adjust to those. And our ownership group felt that, let's instead of trying to just keep running and adjust to it, let's take a little time out and say, how are we actually going to manage the things that are going forward?
What were the things that were most consequential in the new collective bargaining agreement that could have possibly led to this? Of course, you don't have to say this is the straw that broke the camel's back, but anything that led up to this decision.
Yeah, I think a change in the salary cap
Yeah.
obviously has strong economic implications. Additionally, some of the equipment, which without going into too much detail, there were 3 tiers of sticks that were available, and they made a 4th tier available for all teams, and that is roughly 2 times the expense of what the other sticks were that we had been providing. So those 2 things had a pretty large economic impact. A lot of the other things that were in the collective bargaining agreement are relatively easy to handle, from kind of limiting player engagement without compensating them for that. We didn't really have a lot of that going on right now. Trying to give guys enough off days, that's never been a problem for us. I mean, we've had coaches and athletic trainers, medical staff that have been very accommodating, and they understand what it takes to not just play the games, but handle the travel that comes with that too. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the collective bargaining agreement stuff that was impactful is along the dollars and cents side.
This building is still going to have people in it for the next year, and Extreme Arena, it's not going to have Heartlanders hockey, but it will still have events in it for the next year.
Yeah, so we'll still office out of this building until, if there would be a situation where we decide we're not going to continue moving forward, at that point we'd make a change. But this will still be home of Heartlanders hockey. The staff will still work here, and we're just a tenant of Extreme Arena. So my understanding is they're going to continue to operate the way they have, and they're most likely going to be looking for ways to fill those 36 home dates that the Heartlanders won't be playing hockey.
What do you want fans to know and or do in the next 365 days?
Yeah, I think for the most part right now what we need is fans to understand that it's pretty easy in a situation like this to say oh, they're shutting down. And I would like fans to continue to have belief that there can and we're going to be working hard to make sure that we do everything we can to have a season in 27-28. And so to keep that optimism alive, and being able to come to the 8 remaining home games that we have and support us in person would be a fantastic thing for the fans to be a part of. And ultimately, a lot of the work just needs to be done on our side, that we've got to work through some of those systemic opportunities that we need to work on. But from a fan perspective, just support us while we're still playing, and then when the time comes that we're able to announce that we're going to have a season in 27-28, hopefully people will remember the void maybe that this leaves in the community, not just for the fans, but we're currently working with 5 University of Iowa classes that are doing projects for us. We have 28 college students who are interns for us right now that are getting real life experience doing work. We have over 100 nonprofits that we support, whether that's the Shields nonprofit of the game, if that's fundraising links for them, it's donating items to their fundraising events and auctions. It's more than just playing hockey. There's hopefully while we're out for this next year, people will notice the void, and when we're able to come back, that people will say, you know what, I want to make sure I support them because they're supporting a lot of things that matter to me and our community.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell me? Anything else you think is pertinent?
No, I think just as long as people believe that we're working hard to try and keep Heartlanders hockey here, that's the big message, is that this, if our owner wanted to shut it down, he had the option to shut it down. This is something that he believes in and he wants to see succeed, and we want to make sure people continue to have that optimism.